The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what secrets it held. They built telescopes. They sent robots to other planets. They walked on the moon. And finally, after centuries of dreaming, they built a ship that could travel faster than light. The first jump took them to a star system 12 light-years away. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the Times, Hope of Earth Times, and watched as the stars stopped stretching and became points of light again. Her crew cheered. Tears ran down faces. Humanity had done the impossible. They did not know they were being watched. The Galactic Concordat had existed for 10,000 years. It stretched across 3 great arms of the galaxy and contained over 800 different species. The oldest and most powerful were the Velthari, tall beings with silver skin and eyes that glowed like dying stars. They had guided the Concordat since its birth. They had seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. When their sensors detected the human ship, they felt no excitement. They had seen this before. Young species always thought they were special when they first touched the stars. The Velthari knew better. Most species joined the Concordat, paid their tribute, and lived quiet lives on the edges of civilization. Some caused trouble and had to be corrected. A few were destroyed completely. The cycle never changed. Elder Vorath, the oldest of the Velthari Council, studied the data about the newcomers. The humans came from a small planet called Earth. It was a terrible place by galactic standards. The gravity was too strong. The atmosphere was full of a corrosive gas called oxygen. The planet had extreme temperatures, violent storms, and was covered in a deadly substance called water. Predators filled every corner of the world. Diseases killed millions. The planet itself shook and burned with volcanoes and earthquakes. The Velthari had a name for such places. They called them death worlds. Vorath felt something close to pity. These humans had survived on a death world for hundreds of thousands of years. That showed some strength. But they were clearly primitive. They lived short lives, less than 100 years. They had only recently developed space travel. They had spent most of their history fighting wars against each other. He made his decision quickly. The humans would be classified as a Category 7 species, primitive, limited, useful for simple labor, perhaps, but nothing more. The first contact happened 3 months later. A Concordat scout ship called the Times Illuminated Path Times arrived in Earth's solar system. The humans sent out messages of peace and welcome. They invited the aliens to visit their world. They spoke of friendship and cooperation. The Velthari captain did not leave his ship. He simply transmitted the terms of humanity's membership in the Concordat. Humans would be granted provisional membership. This meant they could trade with other species and travel to certain approved worlds. In exchange, they would follow Concordat law. They would pay tribute to the Council every year. They would not build military vessels larger than a certain size. They would not colonize more than 3 star systems. They would accept the guidance of the elder species in all important matters. The message made clear that these terms were not open to discussion. Earth's leaders were shocked. They had imagined first contact as a meeting of equals. They had prepared speeches about shared knowledge and mutual respect. Instead, they received a list of rules and a demand for payment, but they were also realistic. The Concordat had thousands of warships. Humanity had 12. The choice was clear. They accepted the terms and hoped that time would change things. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was chosen to represent humanity in the Galactic Council. She was a skilled diplomat with 30 years of experience. She had negotiated peace treaties between nations that had hated each other for centuries. She believed that patience and respect could solve any problem. The Grand Assembly of the Concordat met on a massive space station at the center of the galaxy. Thousands of species sent representatives there. The station was larger than some moons, filled with gardens and monuments celebrating 10,000 years of civilization. Elena arrived with hope in her heart. That hope died quickly. The other species did not see her as a colleague. They saw her as entertainment. When she spoke in the assembly, the representatives whispered and laughed. When she proposed changes to the trade agreements, they did not even bother to vote. Her suggestions simply disappeared. A Velthari delegate approached her after one particularly difficult session. His name was Counselor Mython, and he seemed almost kind. "You must understand," he said. "Your species is very young. You have achieved much for such primitive beings. But you cannot expect to be treated as equals. You have not earned that right. Perhaps in a few thousand years, if you prove yourselves, things will change. Elena kept her face calm. And how do we prove ourselves? Methan smiled. It was not a warm expression. By knowing your place. By being grateful for what you have been given. By not causing trouble. He walked away before she could respond. The Draconar hegemony watched all of this with great interest. The Draconar were a warrior species, covered in scales the color of dried blood. They had joined the Concordat 2,000 years ago after losing a devastating war against the Velthari. Since then, they had served as the Concordat's enforcers. When a species broke the rules, the Draconar were sent to correct them. High Warlord Kethvaran was the supreme commander of the Draconar military. He had crushed rebellions on 40 worlds. He had never lost a battle, and he was bored. The Concordat had been peaceful for too long. There were no real enemies to fight, no glory to win. The Draconar were warriors without a war, and it was making them restless. Then the humans made a mistake. It was a small thing. A human trading ship was late with a delivery to a Concordat mining station. The delay was caused by an engine malfunction, a simple accident. But the station commander was a Velthari who disliked humans. He filed a complaint with the council, claiming the humans had deliberately broken their trade agreements. High Warlord Kethvaran saw an opportunity. He went to the council and requested permission to discipline the humans. He spoke of teaching them respect for Concordat law. He promised a quick and clean operation. Elder Voreth considered the request. Part of him knew it was unnecessary. The humans had made a small mistake. A fine or a warning would be enough. But another part of him remembered the data about Earth. These humans had survived on a death world. They had fought countless wars among themselves. They might be primitive, but they had a capacity for violence that made some council members nervous. Perhaps it would be wise to break their spirit now. While they were still weak, a show of force would remind them of their place. It would crush any dreams of equality before they could grow. Vorath gave his approval. He told Kethvaran to be thorough but not excessive. A small demonstration of power. Nothing more. Kethvaran bowed and left the chamber. As soon as he was alone, he began to smile. His fangs gleamed in the light of distant stars. He had been given permission to hunt, and he would make it memorable. On Earth, people went about their lives. Children went to school. Workers built ships in the orbital stations. Scientists studied the stars. They knew the galaxy was not fair to them. They knew they were considered primitive and weak, but they also knew something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. They knew what their ancestors had survived. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, mass extinctions. Every challenge had made them stronger. They were not afraid of the future. They should have been, because the future was coming for them, armed with weapons and filled with contempt, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. New Helsinki was a beautiful world. It was humanity's first true colony, a planet with blue skies, green forests, and oceans filled with strange and wonderful life. 3 million people called it home. They had built cities that blended with the landscape. They had schools where children learned about both Earth history and alien stars. They had dreams of a bright future. The Draconar fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning. Local time. High Warlord Kethvaran brought 200 warships. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could crack continents. Their shields could stop nuclear explosions. The fleet spread across the sky like a dark cloud, blocking out the sun. The people of New Helsinki looked up and felt their hearts turn cold. Governor Thomas Okonkwo tried to make contact with the fleet. He asked what they wanted. He offered to discuss any problems peacefully. He reminded them that New Helsinki had broken no laws. Kethvaran's response was simple. You have 1 hour to surrender your world. All humans will leave. This planet now belongs to the Draconar hegemony. If you do not obey, you will be destroyed. Okonkwo's hands shook as he sent his reply. We cannot abandon our homes. Our children were born here. Please, let us discuss this. There must be a peaceful solution. Kethvaran did not answer. He simply waited for the hour to pass. When the deadline came, he gave the order to fire. The first shots hit the capital city. Buildings that had taken years to construct vanished in seconds. Fire spread through the streets. People ran, screaming, but there was nowhere to hide. The Draconar ships moved across the planet like a terrible storm, destroying everything in their path. The worst moment came when they targeted the education district. 7 schools were there, filled with children who had been too young to evacuate. The Draconar did not care. They fired anyway. One of the ships broadcast the attack live across the galaxy. Keth Varan wanted everyone to see what happened to species that did not know their place. He wanted the humans to understand their helplessness. On Earth, people watched in horror as their children burned. Parents screamed at screens that showed them nightmares. The death toll climbed higher every minute. 2 million, 2.1 million, 2.3 million. When it was over, New Helsinki was a graveyard. Ambassador Elena Vasquez demanded an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. She stood before the assembly with fire in her eyes and grief in her voice. She showed them footage of the destruction. She listed the names of the dead. She asked for justice. The council deliberated for 3 days. Their verdict was simple. The Draconar had acted within acceptable limits. The humans had refused a lawful order from a senior concordate species. The consequences were unfortunate but legal. No punishment would be given. Elder Vorath delivered the decision himself. He spoke about the importance of order. He explained that young species needed firm guidance. He suggested that humanity should learn from this experience and avoid future mistakes. Elena listened in silence. When Vorath finished, she had only one question. Is this what the Concordate calls justice? Vorath's glowing eyes showed no emotion. This is what the Concordate calls reality. Accept it or suffer more. Elena walked out of the chamber. She did not speak to the reporters waiting outside. She did not issue any statements. She simply boarded her ship and returned to Earth. The humans went silent. For 3 months, nothing came from human space. No diplomatic messages, no trade ships, no protests or complaints. The human stations around Earth went dark. The colonies sealed their borders. It was as if humanity had simply given up. The galaxy moved on. Other matters demanded attention. The Draconar celebrated their easy victory. Keth Varan received medals and honors. He gave speeches about the importance of strength and the weakness of mercy. Some species felt a little uncomfortable. The attack on New Helsinki had been brutal, even by Concordate standards, but they kept their concerns to themselves. No one wanted to challenge the Draconar or the Council. Councillor Mython, the Velthari who had spoken to Elena, found himself thinking about the humans more than he expected. Their silence bothered him. When species were defeated, they usually begged for mercy or plotted small rebellions. They did not simply disappear. He tried to contact the human embassy several times. No one answered. He sent probes toward Earth space. They were turned back at the border by automated defenses. What were the humans doing in there? Mython brought his concerns to Elder Vorath. The old Velthari dismissed them immediately. They are grieving, Vorath said. Their spirit is broken. In time they will return to their proper role. This is how it has always been. Mython was not so sure. He had studied Earth's history. He had read about their wars, their revolutions, their endless struggles against impossible odds. These were not creatures that gave up easily, but he said nothing. Vorath was old and wise. Surely he knew better. The silence continued for 93 days. On the 94th day, a single human ship appeared at the edge of Draconar space. It was a small vessel, barely larger than a shuttle. It should not have survived the journey. Draconar, border patrols moved to intercept it. Weapons ready. The ship did not flee. It did not fight. It simply stopped and began broadcasting a message. The message was sent in every known language. It echoed across every frequency. It reached every ship, every station, every planet in the sector. 3 words. We remember New Helsinki. And then the ship was gone, jumping away before the Draconar could catch it. Keth Varan laughed when he heard the report. They remember? Good. Let them remember while they hide in their little corner of space. Let them remember forever. His officers laughed with him. It was a good joke. The humans were beaten, and everyone knew it. But far away, in the dark spaces between stars, something was happening that no one in the Concordate had expected. The humans had not spent 3 months grieving. They had spent 3 months building. Shipyards that officially did not exist had been working day and night. Factories that had been hidden since the first contact with the Concordate were now producing weapons and armor at impossible speeds. Scientists who had been quietly studying alien technology for years finally revealed what they had learned. Humanity had always been good at war. It was their greatest shame and their greatest strength. For centuries, they had fought each other with terrible creativity. Now, For the first time in their history, they had a common enemy. The anger of 7 billion people had been focused into a single burning point of purpose. Admiral Chen Wei-lin stood on the bridge of the time's vengeance of the innocent, asterisk, the first of a new class of warships. It was larger than anything the Concordat had ever seen humanity build. Its weapons were based on technologies the aliens had thought too dangerous to develop. Its armor was thick enough to survive blows that would shatter other vessels. And it was not alone. 300 more ships waited in the darkness, their crews ready and eager. Chen looked at the star map. The path to Draconar space was clearly marked. All ships, she said, her voice calm and cold. Begin jump sequence. Today, we remind the galaxy why they should have left us alone. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. The humans were done being victims. Now they would become something far more dangerous. They would become a warning. The first battle happened at the Draconar outpost of Krath Station. It was a military supply depot, protected by 50 warships and defensive platforms that could destroy small moons. The Draconar commander there was confident. He had fought in 20 campaigns. He knew how to crush inferior enemies. The human fleet arrived without warning. Their faster-than-light technology was different from anything the Concordat used. There was no detection signature, no advance notice. One moment the space around Krath Station was empty. The next moment, it was filled with human warships. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, every Draconar ship was destroyed or captured. The station itself was taken intact. The human casualties were light. Too light. It should not have been possible. News of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire. The Concordat had not seen a defeat like this in centuries. How had the primitive humans managed it? The answer came over the following weeks, as the human fleet pushed deeper into Draconar space. Battle after battle followed the same pattern. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. But it was not just their technology that shocked the galaxy. It was the humans themselves. Draconar soldiers were fearsome warriors. They were bigger than humans, stronger, covered in natural armor. They had been bred for combat for thousands of years. When they saw enemy soldiers, they expected to dominate through superior strength. Instead, they found themselves facing creatures from a death world. Human soldiers operated in conditions that other species considered lethal. They fought in high gravity that would crush Draconar bones. They breathed atmospheres that would burn alien lungs. They marched through temperatures that ranged from freezing to boiling. And they did not stop. A Draconar captain named Vexus then recorded his experiences before his ship was captured. His words were later found and shared across the galaxy. "We wounded them," he wrote. "We shot them and stabbed them and broke their bones. They did not stop." One human soldier took 3 plasma burns to the chest and still managed to disable our engine room before he died. Another fought for 6 hours straight with a broken arm, using her teeth when her weapons failed. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. They simply keep coming until one side is destroyed. The galaxy had forgotten what death worlds produced. Evolution on such planets was not gentle. Every creature that survived was the product of millions of years of relentless competition. The weak died, the strong adapted, and the strongest of all learned to ignore pain, ignore exhaustion, ignore everything except the need to win. Humans were the apex predators of a world that specialized in creating monsters. But it was not just their physical endurance that shocked the Draconar. It was their minds. The humans invented new tactics faster than the Draconar could adapt. They used asteroid fields as weapons, pushing massive rocks into the paths of enemy fleets. They flew their ships through plasma storms that sensors could not penetrate. They developed what they called wolf pack tactics, where small groups of fast ships would tear apart supply lines while the main fleet kept defenders occupied. Most disturbing of all was a concept that had no translation in any galactic language. The humans called it spite. Admiral Chen Wei-lin explained it to a captured Draconar officer who asked why the humans were still fighting when they had already proven their point. "You killed our children," she said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "You laughed while they burned. Now we are going to make sure that every single being who gave an order that day, every officer who fired a weapon, every politician who approved the attack, faces justice. Even if it takes 1,000 years, even if it costs us everything, we will not stop until we are satisfied." The officer stared at her. "But that is madness. What do you gain from such revenge? Chen smiled. It was not a happy expression. Satisfaction. And a warning to anyone else who might think about hurting our people. The Draconar did not understand. Their culture valued practical victory. When a war became too costly, you negotiated peace. When an enemy showed strength, you respected them and sought alliance. This endless pursuit of revenge made no sense, but it terrified them. There was one final shock waiting for the Draconar. As the human advance continued, they captured thousands of enemy soldiers. Standard practice in galactic warfare was to execute prisoners or use them as slaves. The Draconar expected the same treatment. Instead, the humans did something impossible. They treated the Draconar prisoners with kindness. Medical teams healed their wounds. Guards brought them food and water. Human officers spoke to them with respect, asked about their families, listened to their stories. When prisoners were too injured to fight again, they were sent home. The first group of returned prisoners arrived on a Draconar border world 6 weeks after the war began. They were healthy, well-fed, and confused. Some of them wept as they told their families what had happened. This broke Draconar morale faster than any weapon could. Warriors who had been ready to fight to the death began surrendering. Why die for an empire that would not even ransom them, when the enemy would simply send them home? Commanders who had been confident in their soldiers suddenly found themselves unable to trust their own troops. The galaxy watched in amazement. This was not how wars were fought. Mercy was weakness. Kindness was stupidity. Everyone knew this, but the humans did not care what everyone knew. They fought their own way. High Warlord Keth Varan tried to rally his forces. He gave speeches about honor and duty. He executed soldiers who spoke of surrender. He poured more and more ships into the conflict. Nothing worked. The human fleet kept advancing. Admiral Chen addressed the galaxy from the bridge of her flagship. Her message was broadcast to every world, every station, every ship with a receiver. You called us primitive, she said. You called us insects. You thought you could murder our children and face no consequences. You were wrong. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was cold enough to freeze stars. You killed our children. You laughed. Now, learn why every species in the universe should fear the ape that learned to hate. We are coming, and we will not stop until we have burned away every trace of your cruelty. The message ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings felt a chill run through their bodies. The Draconar hegemony had ruled through fear for 2,000 years. Now, for the first time, they understood what true fear felt like, and the human fleet was still coming. Keth Varan looked at the star map in his command center. Human icons were spreading across Draconar space like a disease. His border defenses were gone. His fleet was scattered. His soldiers were losing their will to fight. And straight ahead, directly in the path of the human advance, was the Draconar homeworld. He had wanted a war. He had wanted glory. Now he would get something very different. He would get a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. The Draconar homeworld was called Keth Vora. It was a harsh planet of red deserts and black mountains, where the sky burned orange and the ground shook with constant volcanic activity. For 4,000 years, the Draconar had ruled from this world. Their greatest temples stood here. Their most sacred traditions were born here. 12 billion Draconar called it home. Now human ships filled its sky. The fleet arrived at dawn, local time. 300 warships arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the planet. Their weapons were charged and ready. Their crews were silent, focused, waiting for orders. Every Draconar on the planet looked up and saw their death written in metal and fire. High Warlord Keth Varan stood in his command bunker deep beneath the capital city. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes were hollow. He had not slept in days. Around him, his advisors argued about what to do. Some wanted to fight to the last soldier. Others suggested negotiating. A few whispered about escape, though there was nowhere to run. Keth Varan silenced them with a raised hand. He activated his communication system and sent a message to the human fleet. You have won, he said. His voice cracked on the words. I ask for mercy for my people. They did not order the attack on your colony. They did not fire the weapons. Punish me if you must, but spare the innocent. The response came from Admiral Chen Weilin herself. You speak of innocence, she said. Interesting. Where was this concern when your ships targeted our schools? Where was this mercy when you broadcast the deaths of our children across the galaxy? Keth Varan had no answer. The hours that followed were the longest in Draconar history. The human fleet held position, weapons ready, saying nothing. On the surface, 12 billion beings waited to die. Then a different voice spoke from the human flagship. It was Ambassador Elena Vasquez. "People of Kethvora," she said, "we have the power to destroy your world. We have the right, by any measure of justice. You supported a government that murdered millions of our children for sport." She paused. Across the planet, no one breathed. "But we are not you. We will never be you." The weapons on the human ships powered down. Not off, but down. The message was clear. "We could destroy you. We choose not to. We are sending ground forces to your world," Elena continued. "They will arrest your military leaders and government officials. They will gather evidence of crimes. And then there will be trials. Real trials, with judges and lawyers and evidence. Your people will see justice done properly." Human dropships descended through the orange sky. They landed in the capital city, in military bases, in government buildings. Soldiers in heavy armor spread out through the streets. The Draconar watched in confusion. This was not how conquest worked. Where were the executions? Where was the looting? Where were the slave camps? The human soldiers moved with purpose but not cruelty. They arrested officers who had participated in the New Helsinki attack. They secured weapons and military installations. They set up medical stations for Draconar civilians who had been injured in the panic. When they passed schools, they posted guards outside. No one would harm the children of Kethvora. It was the most alien thing the Draconar had ever experienced. High Warlord Kethvaran was captured in his bunker without a fight. He was brought to the surface in chains and placed aboard a human ship. His guards treated him with cold professionalism. They did not beat him. They did not mock him. They simply processed him, like any other criminal. For Kethvaran, this was worse than torture. He had expected death. He had prepared for pain. He had not prepared for the humiliation of being treated like a common lawbreaker. The trials began 3 weeks later. Humans had set up a court system unlike anything the galaxy had seen. There were prosecutors and defense lawyers. There were judges from multiple species, including some Draconar who had opposed the war. There were rules about evidence and procedure. The galaxy watched in fascination. This was how the humans dispensed justice, not through raw power or political convenience, but through careful examination of facts and law. Kethvaran was found guilty of ordering the attack on New Helsinki. He was not executed. Instead, he was sentenced to spend the rest of his life on the ruined colony world, helping to rebuild what his forces had destroyed. He would live among the graves of the children he had killed. It was a punishment no one had expected, and it was more devastating than any death sentence could be. Other officers received similar punishments. Some were imprisoned. Some were stripped of rank and sent to do labor on damaged worlds. None were killed. When the trials ended, something remarkable happened. Draconar civilians began approaching human soldiers with questions. How did your justice system work? Why did you spare our children? What did you hope to gain from showing mercy? The soldiers did not have easy answers. One young corporal, barely 20 years old, was asked why she had risked her life to save a Draconar child from a collapsing building. She thought about it for a long moment before answering. "Because we're supposed to be better than this," she said. "The whole point of coming here was to show that what happened to us should never happen to anyone. If we just did the same thing back to you, what would that prove? That the galaxy is right about us? That we're just animals who learned to fly?" She shook her head. "We came here to prove something different. That you can be strong and still be kind. That you can win a war and still have a soul." The Draconar who heard these words did not know what to say. Such ideas had no place in their understanding of the universe. But slowly, like water wearing away stone, the ideas began to spread. The human occupation of Kethvora lasted 6 months. When it ended, the Draconar hegemony was a changed nation. Their military had been reduced to a defensive force. Their government had been reformed. A new generation of leaders was rising, leaders who had seen humans show mercy when they had every reason to be cruel. Ambassador Elena Vasquez announced that humanity would withdraw from Draconar space. They asked for no tribute, no territory, no payment. They asked only for one thing: an apology. The new Draconar Prime Minister delivered it before the Galactic Council. He spoke of the crimes his people had committed. He named the dead of New Helsinki. He promised that such things would never happen again. When he finished, he bowed to the human delegation. Elena accepted the apology with grace, but she did not leave the council chamber. Instead, she turned to face the Velthari elders who sat in the highest seats. "We are not done," she said. "The Draconar pulled the trigger, but someone else loaded the weapon and pointed it at our children." Elder Voreth's glowing eyes flickered. "The Galactic Council approved the attack on New Helsinki. We have evidence, communications, meeting records, security footage." The Velthari knew what would happen. They wanted it to happen. She stepped forward, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the most powerful beings in the galaxy flinched. "Now we are going to talk about that." The galaxy held its breath. The humans had proven they could destroy an empire in months. They had proven they could show mercy to their enemies. Now they would prove something else. They would prove that no one, not even the oldest and most powerful species in creation, was above justice. And the Velthari, for the first time in their ancient lives, felt something they had long forgotten. They felt afraid. The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Concordat was silent. 1,000 species had sent representatives here, beings of every shape and color and form imaginable. They filled the massive chamber like a living rainbow, but none of them made a sound. All eyes were on the human delegation. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked down the central aisle with her head held high. She wore a simple black suit, the color of mourning on her world. Behind her came a dozen human marines in full combat armor. Their weapons were holstered, but everyone knew how quickly that could change. Elder Vorath watched from his elevated seat. His silver skin seemed duller than usual. His glowing eyes had lost some of their light. He had ruled the Concordat for 3,000 years. He had never felt so uncertain. Elena stopped at the speaking platform. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. Then she began to speak. 10 months ago, she said, a Draconar fleet attacked our colony of New Helsinki. They killed 2.3 million of our people. Many of them were children. She let the words hang in the air. We were told this attack was legal. We were told it was acceptable under Concordat law. We were told to accept it and move on. A few representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Draconar section was nearly empty. Most of their diplomats had resigned in shame after the trials. We did not accept it. We could not accept it. So we fought back. We defeated the Draconar hegemony. We captured their leaders. We put them on trial. We showed the galaxy that justice does not come from power alone. She paused and turned to face the Velthari elders directly. But the Draconar were not alone in their guilt. We have evidence that this council knew about the attack before it happened. We have records showing that Elder Voreth personally approved the operation. We have communications proving that the attack was designed to break humanity's spirit and prevent us from ever becoming a threat to the Concordat. The chamber erupted in whispers. 1,000 species muttered to each other in shock. Some had suspected this truth, but hearing it spoken aloud was different. Voreth rose from his seat. His voice was still powerful, still commanding. "These are lies," he said. "Human propaganda designed to justify their aggression. The Concordat had no involvement in the Draconar action. We simply ruled that it was legal under existing law." Elena smiled. It was not a warm expression. "I had hoped you would say that." She gestured to her Marines. One of them stepped forward carrying a data device. He placed it on the speaking platform and activated it. A holographic image appeared above the chamber. It showed a recording of a Velthari council meeting from before the attack. The audio was clear and the translation was perfect. In the recording, Elder Vorath spoke to his fellow elders about the human problem. He talked about how the Death Worlders might become dangerous if allowed to grow. He discussed the need to crush their spirit early. He personally gave authorization for the Draconar attack and specified that children should be among the targets. "Make it painful," the recorded Voreth said. "Make them understand their place. Make them too afraid to ever challenge us." The recording ended. The chamber was completely silent. Voreth's silver skin had turned pale. His glowing eyes were wide with shock. He had not known the humans had obtained this recording. He had been so confident that his secrets were safe. "You were right to fear us," Elena said. "But you made one terrible mistake. You thought fear would make us weak. You thought pain would make us submit. You forgot what kind of world we come from." She stepped closer to the Velthari section, her voice rising. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Ice ages, plagues, predators, disasters. Every generation of humanity has faced extinction and survived. Every challenge has made us stronger. You thought you were teaching us a lesson about power. Instead, you reminded us why we became the dominant species on a death world. She looked around the chamber, addressing all the species present. The Concordat has existed for 10,000 years. It has brought peace and prosperity to many worlds. But it has also done terrible things to young species like us. It has crushed dreams. It has murdered innocence. It has made laws that protect the strong and punish the weak. Her voice softened, but lost none of its power. We did not come here to destroy the Concordat. We came here to change it. We demand full membership for humanity, equal status with any species, a seat on the Elder Council, the right to colonize any unclaimed world, the right to build any ships we want. Elder Vorath found his voice. These demands are impossible. You cannot simply force your way onto the Elder Council. There are traditions. There are procedures. Yes, Elena agreed. Traditions that said we should be quiet while our children burned. Procedures that said genocide was acceptable if done by the right species. She shook her head. Those traditions end today. Those procedures end today. You will give us what we ask, or you will watch as we dismantle everything you have built. The threat was not hidden. Everyone knew what the human fleet could do. They had broken the Draconar hegemony in 3 months. The Concordat might be larger, but it was also more fragile. Too many species were held together by fear rather than loyalty. The Velthari elders looked at each other. They had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be powerless. Now they remembered. Councillor Mython rose from his seat. Unlike Vorath, he did not look angry or afraid. He looked thoughtful. I will second the human demands, he said. The chamber erupted in noise. A Velthari supporting the humans? It was unthinkable. Mython raised his hand for silence. I have studied the humans since they first appeared in our space, he said. I have watched how they fight. I have watched how they treat their enemies. I have watched them show mercy when they had every right to be cruel. He turned to face his fellow elders. They are not like us. They are something new, something we need. For 10,000 years, we have ruled through fear and power. The humans show us a different way. They show us that strength and kindness can exist together. He looked at Elena. I support their demands, not because I am afraid of their fleet, though I am. I support them because they have earned this. They have proven themselves worthy in ways we never imagined. The vote that followed was not close. Species that had been silent for centuries finally found their voices. They had seen the recording of Vorath's crimes. They had watched the humans fight with honor and show mercy and victory. They were ready for change. When the count was finished, humanity had won. Elder Vorath tried to object, but his own people removed him from the chamber. He would face trial later, for his role in the attack on New Helsinki. His long reign was over. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the speaking platform as the cheering died down. She had one more thing to say. Let this day be remembered, she said. Let every species teach their children what happened here. The humans came from a death world. They were called primitive and weak. They were attacked without reason and shown no mercy. She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes, and they responded not with destruction, but with justice. Not with hatred, but with hope. We did not become monsters to defeat monsters. We became something better. She looked around the chamber one last time. But never forget. We can become monsters if we must. We learned that skill long ago, in the darkness of our evolution. We choose not to use it. That is a gift, and gifts can be taken away. The chamber was silent. Do not make us monsters. Do not hurt our people. Do not threaten our children. Show us respect, and we will show you wonders. Show us kindness, and we will be your greatest allies. Her voice turned to ice. Show us cruelty, and we will burn your worlds until your grandchildren's grandchildren still wake screaming from nightmares about what the humans did to their ancestors. She stepped back from the platform. Welcome to the new galaxy. We look forward to working with you all. That night, the Galactic Species Registry was updated. Earth's entry received a new annotation, written in red letters that would never fade. It read, Warning, category reclassified. Do not provoke. Do not underestimate. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. In the years that followed, the warning was taught in schools across the galaxy. Young beings of every species learned about the humans. They learned about the death world called Earth. They learned about the war that changed everything. And they learned the phrase that humans use to describe their philosophy. The translator system struggled with it at first. The concept was difficult to express in other languages, but eventually, they found words that came close. The humans called it a simple truth about the universe. If you start trouble, you will discover consequences. Or, as they put it more colorfully in their own language, a phrase that became famous across 1,000 worlds. Mess around and find out. The humans had found their place among the stars. They had earned it with blood and tears and mercy. They had proven that the universe could be better than it was, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson they taught. Some species are meant to be left alone. Humanity was one of them. The end.